Carl here from Wani, and this afternoon I have the great pleasure of hanging out with none other than V-Man of Slipknot. And once again, my friend, thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with me here today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
No, pleasure to meet you too. I'm happy to do this. So.
Awesome. So first of all, we're here today to talk primarily about the upcoming Slipknot record, The End So Far, which drops September 30th. And man, I was fortunate enough to have received a copy yesterday evening, and I don't really feel I can go any further without first congratulating you and the guys on what is a truly special record, my friend. It's quite a gift, so thank you, and congratulations to you and the guys first of all.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Of course, yeah. So I found it interesting to hear you describe this record as a journey, because I think that's quite a faithful way of articulating what this record does for a listener, because it kind of takes you to some places the band hasn't been before. And you rightly said that by the time you reach the end, you kind of feel like you've come through the other side of an experience, like the sequencing tells a story. And I'd love to hear more about what you respectively as a member of this band. Where did this album take you while writing it that was perhaps different compared to Grey Chapter, We Are Not Your Kind, and so on?
Yeah, I mean, compared to like with Grey Chapter and stuff, which was one of those records for me where when I turned up, it was new to the band, new to everything, new people that I'd not met before. And so, there was not really much of an input on that. And then as We Are Not Your Kind came around, that was the first time I started getting involved in the writing process on certain songs. And it was the melody aspect certainly came out on that record. And I think that kind of bridges over into this record. It's definitely aspects of that album coming into here, and I think it just evolves a lot more. But then also, the heaviness, the heavier tracks, and just trying to push them more now into, a more of a, I don't know. It's weird because I never really look at songwriting like that. I always just look at it as being, for me, when I get home, I'm doing something or I'm working on, that's never in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's always what I'm doing there right now, and once somebody else adds their input, something else might come out that I would have never thought about doing, or something like that. And then I think that's how it works. It's you evolve that way. And I think with this one, there's definitely, if you listen, you can't listen to them, but back to the original stuff, and they're not far off, but it's still, they definitely turned into different songs. So.
Absolutely, and thank you for mentioning that, because you did mention that this album serves as the one that since joining the band you've kind of gotten most deep in when it comes to songwriting. So there's a very big difference between adding your personality and flavor and then building songs, writing riffs, offering them up to the band. So I wonder, this time specifically, kind of what caused this to be the deepest one that you've gone. Was there a reason for stepping further out of the shadows than maybe you had previously on this record when it came to writing?
I don't know. I think it was just more the fact that Clown really wanted me to, from what I did previously on We Are Not Your Kind, I think he wanted to see what I could do. And I was, during lockdown, I would be sending him stuff and little demos of songs, or even a full arrangement of a song. I'd send it to him in how I thought, it should be, and programming stuff, and, just what I would do if it was me, as opposed to someone else in the band, And because, it's all very well if I just send a guitar riff and it's just got a hi-hat going like that. That's not really a song, is it? And I don't think you can express yourself that way, really, as a musician. So, I would start off with everything being like either a guitar riff, and then I would add bass, I would add like programmed drums, and, just so you get the rhythm of something, and I would hand him stuff like that. And I think that was kind of the thing that started it off, really.
That's a wonderful answer. Thank you
once
so
I had
much.
a bunch.
I love that answer. Thank you so much for sharing that, man. And don't worry, I won't get too much into spoiler territory for anyone who hasn't heard it yet. But I would love to talk just a little bit about, you know, some of the themes on the records and the singles that you guys have released so far. Because what I really love about this record, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is an almost didactic tone that runs throughout it. And I got the first taste of that with Chapeltown Rag, you know. Part of it kind of tackles this, you know, it feels like this kind of prayer, a gush to God that isn't there, and there's an anger embedded in that reality, but it also tackles that insidious side of social media, right back to the read all about it, newspaper boys, online space we have now today. But even musically, the song kind of crescendos in that cry of almost fear and then falls off into exhaustion in this melancholic quality. So for something that can sound like a roller coaster, it's actually very rich and very nuanced. But that's me, that's what I hear. And I'd love to know if you could share a little bit about what the assembly of the things that make up what you hear when you listen or when you play Chapeltown Rag.
Yeah, that was a song where I just felt that, you know, with a lot of previous stuff that we've done, say like Nero Forte or you know, I felt like I was trying to push the instruments more separated a bit, and I think I was trying to get everyone having a different journey as opposed to it just being a solid everyone playing the same riff, verse chorus, and I think, that's when I started going away with the bass, with the, you know, that kind of stuff. And I think then that gives other people more room to breathe and to add their flavour into the song. So, and then as we got to the studio, it just got bigger and bigger. And, you know, once everyone put their mark on the song, it was great to hear it from what it started off as and what it ended as.
I love that. And there's only one more track that I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about, because it really captures the essence of the narrative here, I think, and that's Desaad towards the end. And, you know, for anyone who may be unfamiliar with his work, Marquis, I believe it's Marquis Desaad was a French writer between the 17 and 1800s who spent a lot of time in prison, but he has those two books in particular, Justine and 120 Days of Sodom, both of which are still regarded as two of the most sexually depraved works ever written. And yet to others, the feeling is Desaad gives voice to that darker side of the human emotion, you know, or human condition. You know, he creates a space that allows those darker elements to have safe expression. So I'm curious, that idea of acknowledging the darker side of our psyches as a very human experience and giving that a safe space for expression, to your mind, do you think that's something that this album is trying to do within that journey you spoke of earlier?
I don't know. I mean, I can only really speak to it more in a musical way, really. And for me, when that was coming about, that song, it was a completely different thing. And I mean, it was Clown's arrangement of it. I mean, he started moving literally a verse or a chorus around and stuff like that. And we were just chopping it up, and it brought out a different thing in me where I was just like, well, hold on, instead of going there, why don't we go here? And then all of a sudden, you know, this, I can't even tell you because it's not out yet, is it? But yeah, it gets to a point where there's a certain melodic part in it. And it wasn't until we heard it with Corey's vocals on it that I was like, because I was just like, oh, I hope
you were crossing the fingers.
And it did.
Yeah,
and it did, and it was just amazing to hear it. So, I wish I could talk a bit more about the melody of that bit. But yeah, I love that song. How that turned, it was incredible. Yeah,
I think it's one. And thank you for sharing what you can about it. I'll sleep better tonight now that that's out of my mind. So thank you kindly. But
sorry, I couldn't get a bit more philosophical with it, but
absolutely fine.
For me, yeah, I think when I think about the writing of it and being in the studio and how it all came about, I think that was more of I suppose that was a mental attack of the senses. But I think, it was the way it came about was more of a journey for me. But
that's a really fascinating
just to see how it came.
It. Yeah, that's a really fascinating way of describing it, because I imagine that recording a Slipknot record is quite an intense process, no matter what way you look at it.
Yeah, it was just the way that it just went from being like something just completely different, and Clown, he just came in and was like, how about that? And I was like, right, let's add a little bit more there, a little bit more there. That's how something came out, and then Corey put the vocals on it, and then it's like, boom, there you go. That was it.
I love that. And I have a question now for you that I hope that you should be able to answer, because it's not about that specifically, I promise you. But I found it really interesting to learn, and I don't know if you still do it, but that every show you play, you listen to it back the day after to hear everything that happened, what worked, what's worth considering for improvement. And it's a quality that really serves as a testament of your dedication to the craft, I think. But as someone who practices this, I wonder how it equates to an album, right? Because an album is a once-off for the most part, with perhaps the exception of remasters and remixes. There's no correcting an album. So how do you separate the two in your mind? Is that a challenge for you?
Yeah, it's a tough one, especially when we were putting it down to, like, I'd say pen and paper would be when I'm sitting with Joe or someone else is sitting with Joe in the control room and it's ready to track. Mm-hmm. Now, you can always go back in, like, after you hear a certain bit, but really, like, if you put the bass down and then guitars have been put on top, it's tough to then just go, oh, by the way, I'm going to completely change this.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably get away with a couple of note changes that don't, obviously, if they harmonically work together, then you're good to go. But rhythmically is a bit of an issue, and so But it is that time though when it's just like the drums are down, right? Here comes the bass. I know I'm rehearsed. I have all the songs ready to go. I want to be in there, not the longest possible time. I want to be there, do my work, get in there, get out, make sure it's a solid piece of work. But there were times when I was just like, hey, should we try this? Mm-hmm. Hey, should we try that? Hey, should we try that? And then Joe would be like, hey, we should try this one here, especially on Adderall. Mm-hmm. That was one where, Joe was like, come on, let's just keep going until we got what we got. And yeah, that was... So something that wasn't there before is there now, and that's just from overly listening to it in the studio and being like, well, let's just see if we can explore the space again. And, because I think we got to a point where we were happy and comfortable with how the songs were structurally. Mm-hmm. So, do you know what I mean? I couldn't go, well, I'm going to put a big, huge slap bass side over yeah, it's not going to work. So, but as for pushing, the playing a bit more, that was definitely something that happened.
That's wonderful. And Adderall, by the way, is gorgeous. So I'm glad that it's a wonderful introduction, and it really caught me off guard, I gotta admit. So it was awesome. Yeah. Yeah,
that was a Clown, Corey, and Mike. Mm-hmm. It was a completely, those guys really did I mean, when I first heard it, I was like, wow, this is nuts. And then all of a sudden, we just started adding stuff to it, and then it just turned into a whole new thing.
Absolutely. So you don't find it, you're not somebody who looks back at the previous records retrospectively too much. You don't look at the previous two and kind of go, wish I could change that, wish I could do that. You're able to move on.
No, I think you'd be stuck in your head for the rest of your life otherwise. If you keep thinking too much in the past, then how can you're not going to move forward. And I think with music, you have to, keep pushing yourself. So.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you. And my final question for you is hopefully a simple one, I promise. But please feel free to go as little or as deep with it as you would like, because for someone in your position, or anyone that is in a band that has as many eyes on them as Slipknot, or as Slipknot, cultivating some sort of private life is a pretty precious and sacred and challenging thing. So when you join, the mask and moniker of V-Man protects that space to a certain extent, but when the identity is revealed, you have to learn to negotiate things that might look familiar but really are an entirely different terrain now. So I'd love if you'd be comfortable enough to share your thoughts on whether you've managed to maintain some of that for yourself since the mask was lifted for you, and if so, of what importance does that hold for you in your life?
I think, I don't know, I think all the years of when I was working as a guitar tech and being around like other famous people, or being around people of, that someone would say, oh wow, I look up to them, or they've got posters of them on their wall. I don't know, it was a thing for me that when I started with the band, I never really had that kind of thought in my head. I just thought it was just like, I'm here to do, obviously I'm like, wow, cool, this is Slipknot and stuff like that. I grew up listening to the band, but I think as time's gone on and stuff, and especially where I live as well in England, and I don't know. I like my friends were in bands, or that they were successful at some point or whatever. So for me, I feel like nothing really changed in the sense of, I better hide who I am and stuff. So I like to feel like it never put me into a mentally challenging way to make me think, oh shit, do I have to rethink how my life should be, or do you know what I mean? Or should I do things differently that now that things have changed, So, I'll still go to, like the other night, I went to go see Meshuggah. I just stood in the crowd and watched them from front of the house because I thought that's where it sounded best.
Nice.
And I think two people came up to me and was like, can I have a photo? And I was like, sure. And that was it.
And you were done.
I kept watching the band.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I'm not, I'm not sure I get it. You're in a successful band, it's a knot fest, and people are there to see your band play, but also I want to still watch a band that I like. Where it sounds best.
I know you're a big Meshuggah fan. You see them every chance you get, right?
If I can, yeah. That's the thing. I always miss them by like a day or something. I wanted to go see Rammstein on this break. Logistics of me getting to this place that wasn't in Netherlands, but it was in I don't know. It was just like, it wasn't like I could have got an EasyJet flight for 20 quid, but it was it was more than that. It was then a 4-hour drive and all this kind of stuff. So, I would have tried to done it if I could. But.
Gotcha. Well, listen, my friend, it's been a pleasure meeting you for the first time, and my sincere congratulations to you and the guys on what is an incredible record. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you nothing but the best for the rest of the year and beyond, my friend.
Thank you for your time, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Have a great day.